Rwanda and Turkey have been partnering in trade and investment, with the total investment of Turkish companies in Rwanda standing at $383 million. Both countries look to strengthen these relations by increasing investment and improving bilateral trade. Isa Dal, a delegate from Turkish Exporters Assembly, joins us now to discuss about Turkish investment and trade with Rwanda. Glad to have you speaking to us. You mentioned that you're here only for 2 days and then you leave. But of course, the context of conversation that has been here is heavy. For the last 6 to 7 years, Turkish companies have made $383 million worth of investments. How heavy are your shoulders now, knowing the kind of mandate you have to create an investment environment and jobs in the country?
Yeah, actually, we are very much pleased being here in Rwanda. It's just for the 2 days now. Right. Today we had just a starting conversation on bilateral meetings, and tomorrow we're going to see the industrial area and some investment opportunities. Right. So currently, the Turkish investment is about $400 million, but we are very, very optimistic that we're going to increase it in the next couple of years to a duplicate number at least. Turkey, as you know, has about $800 billion of GDP, so we are was one of the 17th biggest economies in the world, and we are exporting to 283 countries around the world. So that's actually a very large portfolio. And we are very enthusiastic about coming over here. We have been invited, and so far we are very, very much impressed of the figures, and that Rwanda is one of the most reliable, actually probably the #1 reliable investment ports for Turkish investors, actually.
Particularly in terms of governance. So what do you work out as the best selling point for Rwanda to you? Because I mean, you've traveled all over the world. The size of the country might not be as, unless you look at it collectively from the region. What is the selling point for the country?
The selling point is probably it's actually the stability within the politics and with your constitution. Right. And so within the African region, especially the location, so you're a little bit far from the port, but it really doesn't matter. Right. It's a taxation that it provides, and also the laborship that was being provided here. And there are certain incentives which actually attracts the investors in Turkey who wants to spread to the African market and start actually the manner, the philosophy of Turkish people is just to once they are there, just to invest and to share the profit with the countries and to share the wealth. So this is actually our aim, and we hope within the next 1 more days that we will see opportunities and invite more investors. It's actually not a very big delegate now at the moment, but I'm pretty much sure that within this year or next year, especially we have just it's been announced today that next year we're going to skip the visa, so there was a visa-free travel. So that will actually make a huge difference. Another point is that Turkish Airlines has been flying now for over 5 years directly to Kigali to Turkey. So that's actually one very, very much important point for us.
Right, fantastic. Now let's talk about your portfolio. Last year, Rwanda imported $76.7 million worth of textile and apparel. We'd like to understand whether you, as you go forward, 2017, 2018, whether you focus on that or we should see a lot more diversification in the sector and into which you'd anticipate more priority.
Well, actually, there are some products that we are already importing for 78 million, as you said, but I think it will be more that we invest more in Rwanda, that we produce more over here with our know-how, because we have a very, very huge industry in our country, and we have also, as I said, 238 countries in our network, on our selling portfolio, which we could actually serve, because out of Rwanda, the East African community is trade-free, is a tax-free area, which will give actually opportunities for the investors and also for your country.
All right, are we able to quantify what you'd be losing out on, or what the quid pro quo would be if you set up industries here and reduce on the importation into Rwanda? What would you be giving up that you think you'd make if you're based locally?
So if we base locally, actually the most important part will be the tax-free sales over here, and which will also drive the manufacturing, the production. And the young working force over here, so we actually need to train them as well with our industrial background, so that you have more skilled, more qualified personnel that you can get involved in the manufacturing more, rather than, okay, it will be also some trading, but it's mainly based on manufacturing in this country.
All right, let me touch on that in regards to textile. So we have the AGOA Act that was introduced, and of course most of the conversation was about the second-hand clothes. Yeah. How has that conversation been worked in? Because in the African economies we're still struggling with execution of just blocking it out all at once. How have you worked out that from your end now that you think should be replicated within the African context?
Well, we are, Turkey has a textile industry for about $40 billion. Right. So $22 billion is for exports, and $18 billion within the local market. So we have actually we are one of the top 3 in the world for home textiles, and within the top 10 in apparel and garments. Right. So we have a large know-how, and what we want to bring in here, because textiles is still, it needs know-how, but it's very labor-intense manufacturing. So we want to actually, we will suggest our investors to invest in the manufacturing over here, but there are still some big infrastructural lacks that we have to fulfill, like getting in raw materials, semi-raw materials, and get them made up here, so we have can build up certain textile manufacturing skill over here to be spread to the other African countries as well. Right.
Yeah. From a policy level, we'd imagine that most of the time nations reach out to companies and they come in, and but this time the general sentiment is that since you have a heavy portfolio here, you'd be a lot more involved with the policy and export targets. Give us your view on how you think Rwanda would incorporate the Turkish Assembly's mandate or that particular role within its national policy.
Well, within the international policy, the Rwandan constitution and aspect of view to the taxation, which will be enabling us and with our Rwandan partners to export out of Rwanda, not just to the African countries, as well as to the other countries like the US or Europe as well, or just re-export into Turkey.
And does that tie into what the country would would want to do with other countries? How do you come in now to provide a collaborative approach, maybe in terms of advice on how they would go about export and import with other countries?
Well, there are certain problems on double taxations which needs to be sorted out. I think that it will be the duty of the bureaucracy now. They're talking today, still the talkings are going on. That will needs to be clarified within the next year. Within this year or next year, it will be probably starting, and then we can expect the investors coming into Africa. I think Rwanda is providing the most incentive, the most attracting infrastructure actually for foreign investors, not just for Turkey probably.
All right. My final question, I've been asked to go to break, but Turkey was declared as a strategic partner in 2008 for Kenya. Now, that means that we have a collaborative approach, or we should see Turkey spread out in East Africa. What is your view on how you're working out, help us understand how you're working out the regional perspective?
On the region, well, Kenya is the port actually, and so we will probably getting into using Kenya as also as an exporting entry point, and also as an exit point, most probably. And so it's actually one of our strategic partners. But well, the investors will actually choose it. The more we can sort out the taxation issues. Within the next time, we will have more investors coming and traders coming into this country, and within the collaboration with the other ports and countries, we will raise the GDP here or in Rwanda.